Hi guys, I just wanted to do a quick video about one of my other chronic illnesses that I deal with. As you may know in some of my other videos, I deal with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, dysautonomia, POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, psoriatic arthritis, fibromyalgia, and this, I think I named them all, I don't know. And this is Myasthenia gravis. So Myasthenia gravis is a neuromuscular disease. It is a progressive disease. There is no cure for this. They do treat symptoms, but there is no cure. So in this video I'm just going to talk about how the myasthenia affects me and me personally, because everyone is different. In fact, they call myasthenia gravis the snowflake disease because no two snowflakes are alike. So for me, I'll kind of go from top to bottom here and kind of go through, what the issues are. First of all, myasthenia gravis, like I said, is a neuromuscular disease. So what that means is that it's an autoimmune disease that affects your body, attacks the acetylcholine in the neuromuscular junction. So the nerves that try to go across the neuromuscular junction to the muscle can't very much. There's a fault in there, and so whenever the muscles have repetitive movement, that acetylcholine breaks down. I don't know exactly how the technicalities of it all really, but it breaks down and there's not enough, I call juice, to get that spark across. And so when that spark doesn't go across, your muscles fatigue. They get kind of almost paralyzed in the sense of they won't work. They become so weak that they just give out and they won't function. So for me, sometimes it affects my eyes, where my eyes, I'll feel like really droopy. My face will kind of get a little more droopy. But it doesn't affect me there too much because I have generalized myasthenia gravis. There's also ocular, which just affects people's eyes. Like they'll just have like droopy eyelids. But for me, it affects my whole body, so it's called generalized. So it affects my chewing, my muscles in my face. So when I go to chew, they fatigue, so I can get a few bites in that are normal chewed bites, but after that it gets weak. So I chew, but I can't continue to chew, and then the food that's not even all the way chewed will try to sneak down my throat. Excuse me, sorry. And then it makes it hard to swallow even after that. So the next thing is difficulty swallowing. So even when I chew my food properly, my throat does not pull the food down like it should. The muscles are too weak to do that. So it makes it very difficult to swallow. I'll have to swallow like just several times to get one piece of food down. And that fatigues everything in addition to already being fatigued, so it makes it like worse. Food actually doesn't always go down my throat. Sometimes it stays in my throat, like in the back of my throat, and won't go down. Even when I drink some water or something like that, the food just stays there and it won't go down. It just takes a really long time for it actually to go down. And I choke sometimes because I choke on liquids and just regular food sometimes. It also affects my voice. Sometimes I'll get hoarse or I'll start to lose my voice, and that's just part of the myasthenia gravis. It affects my breathing. So the diaphragm muscle that sits between your rib cage and your abdominal cavity is that muscle that helps you, that opens up your rib cage and allows you to get air. In myasthenia gravis, in my case, and almost obviously everyone's with myasthenia, is that muscle fatigues and it doesn't always work properly. And so we become short of breath. Sometimes we go into what they call a myasthenic respiratory crisis because like respiratory failure because our diaphragm won't move to move air, and then we can't get air. So I tend to get short of breath quite often, especially with exertion, like going from the living room to the kitchen, or walking into church, or walking into a store, and things like that. Sometimes I'm short of breath just sitting on the couch. I get extremely short of breath when I eat and when I talk on the phone. So that's the scariest part for me. And I know it is for all myasthenics, is the respiratory issue when you can't breathe. That's scary because you want to breathe and your lungs themselves function, but getting the air to them is the problem, and that's the scary part. Normally when this happens, you get admitted to the hospital and you go for a treatment because you're in crisis. Unfortunately for me, I've exhausted my crisis treatment options, and so it's even scarier for me. So I'll get to that part maybe in a minute here, but so then, and the next thing that is my arms and my legs become weak, along with my back muscles. My Ehlers-Danlos causes my joints to be loose, and so my back overcompensates to try to hold me up because of that. But then my back overcompensating fatigues my muscles in my back, which makes them weak, which makes me fall. Can't sit up anyway. So a lot of times I'm hunched over, but I'm hunched over one because my back muscles are extremely weak. Two, because I have a deformity from my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome in my back there. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. My arms and my legs are weak, so repetitive movements such as washing your hair, I have to put the shampoo in, scrub it around a little bit, wait a couple seconds, put my arms back down, let them rest, and then I can maybe rinse it out, let it rest again, put in the conditioner, let it rest again, rinse it out, let it rest again. I mean, it's really annoying. And same goes with brushing my teeth. The repetitive motion of holding a toothbrush up, my arms get extremely weak. Electric toothbrushes are great for people with myasthenia gravis because it does a lot of the work for them, so I love that. But like cooking supper, stirring things to cook, all that stuff fatigues my arms, and to the point where they just won't work anymore. So then I have to stop and rest to build up, I guess, the acetylcholine once again in the neuromuscular junction. But sometimes rest doesn't even make a difference. So that's the bummer of it. For my legs, I have difficulty walking longer distances. For instance, today I had to park farther out at church because my husband wasn't with me, and I lost my handicap tag, and I have to get a new one, and they don't just give you one, they have to mail it to you, so I don't have that right now. So I had to kind of park, there was no spots, I was running behind because I was having a little bit of a rough morning, and I had to park a little farther out. So after church, after sitting in church and fighting to sit up in church and experiencing a lot of pain in church, trying to hold my head up, sometimes I sit like this. It's not because I'm interested in the sermon, don't get me wrong, but it's not because I'm very interested in what you're saying. It's because I'm holding my head up. Otherwise my neck muscles fatigue out. My head I can't do it very well. So after doing all of that today in church and just really fatigued, going back out to the truck, my legs were not cooperating very well at all. I almost didn't make it back to the truck before my legs froze. And what I mean is it used up all the, I call juice. So all the juice was out of my legs. There was nothing there to fire my muscles, and they were just about, it's like walking in cement or like really wet sand, or like trying to run through water like up to your waist. So if you're trying to run through water up to your waist, that's what it feels like for me outside of water, just walking around. And so it's very difficult. So on that note, I use a rollator walker around the house when my legs get like that. or my POTS makes me dizzy, and I'm just weak from either not getting enough nutrition because my stomach issues or whatever. I'll use my walker around our home to keep me steady and for stability. And it has a little seat. And so if I'm in the kitchen, I can sit down and take a little bit of a break in between trying to do dishes or cooking or something like that. On my really, really bad days, obviously I'm parked on the couch and I don't cook at all. But for longer distances, such as going to the mall or going to a department store, I use my wheelchair. It was custom made for me and it comes in handy for that. I think of it as a tool, not as a last resort. That allows me to retain some of my function. So when I do come home, I can actually have energy to maybe cook supper. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to walk very far at all before my legs gave out. And then I would be so exhausted, I wouldn't even be able to cook supper or do anything like that. So it's a great little tool. And yeah, so treatment-wise for myasthenia gravis, they treat you with Mestinon, which I think is like an anticholinergic. They use IVIG, plasmapheresis, steroids, immunosuppressives. And for me, I've exhausted all of those except Mestinon. And Mestinon basically just helps with some of the symptoms. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it works for a little while, or then it'll kind of not work as well. The other ones kind of are help treat the disease process, as myasthenia gravis is a progressive disease. I went through IVIG. I've done it a few times, and every time that I've tried, I've gotten aseptic meningitis very bad. One time I was in a hospital for 11 days, and it's just, you get so sick, your brain swells, that it's a mess. It's just horrible. So I take that off the table for me. Plasmapheresis was a great treatment too. It worked for me. But the last one I had a port put here in my jugular, and I don't know what happened, but my body for some reason decided it didn't like it. I don't know. Within a few minutes of my plasmapheresis treatment, I experienced crushing chest pain, shortness of breath, tachycardia, dizziness, and then they had to take me to the emergency room. From the floor I was on getting plasmapheresis, the hospital I had this last time was not a good. My plasmapheresis prior to this were successful, but because of this one, it did something weird to my heart, and so they had to stop that treatment. But then also when they pulled my port, this particular hospital didn't follow a protocol, which is when you pull out a port from either a subclavian or a jugular, you're supposed to cough and bear down while they pull that out. It's okay. Well, they didn't do that with me. They didn't even tell me they were going to do it. They just pulled it out. And that sparked autonomic nervous system malfunction. And I had distorted vision. Everything was upside down. Faces were like swirly. And then I lost my vision for 24 hours. I could not see for a whole day. That was very scary. But that also triggered more things like POTS, which I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which, yeah, I had that after that. Anyway, so because of all of that happened with that particular plasmapheresis, they don't do that treatment for me anymore. Immunosuppressives, I was allergic to some, was on one for a little while, but then I got cancer, which sometimes the immunosuppressives can cause cancer because your immune system gets all like really low and a mess. And so I developed cervical cancer and had to have a hysterectomy 7 years ago. And then I tried a different immunosuppressives, but I have allergic reactions to them, so they don't give me those. And then steroids, I had adverse reaction to. For a while, when I took them, I ended up with a lot of joint issues. I got glaucoma. I got, of course, mood issues. I became somebody I did not like at all. And so that's how that is. But then I developed an allergy to the steroid. And I get tachycardia, itching, shortness of breath, chest pain with prednisone now. So I can't take that. So for me, they don't know what they're going to do. And so the scary thing for me is because as of late, I've been having a lot of shortness of breath. And so, trying to keep that watched, because there's not really, I don't know what they can do if I go into a myasthenic crisis, except for admit me to the hospital if I really can't breathe, then they intubate you. I really don't want to be on a ventilator. So anyway, that's what I do. And what gets me through the day, and I've said this in my other videos, is God. I mean, He's what sustains me. He sustains me when I can't eat. I haven't been able to eat. I haven't had a real meal in like almost going on 3 weeks. And He sustains me. I'm able to function still. I'm able to use the tools that I have, my wheelchair, my rollator, walker, braces, things like that. And I can use, but God still allows me to keep moving forward and to keep fighting and to keep going and to not give up, because you just can't. Of course, I would be lying if I were to say that there are days where I don't feel like doing that. There are days where I feel like giving up, and I'm like, I'm tired. And mostly it's because I get battle weary. That's what I call it. I call it battle weary. When I get battle weary, when I've been fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and then I have all the other chronic illnesses coming on also, and trying to fight those, I get so tired. And then I get battle weary and I'm tired of fighting. And I believe that's when God really steps in, because He says, be still and I will fight for you. And so those days when I really can't fight for myself, God fights for me. And He fights for me all the time, but He especially fights for me when I can't fight for myself. And He says, be still and I will fight for you. I think it's Exodus 13:13. But so I rely on Him and His strength to get me through all this. And I do rest, but I don't give up. So that's, if you feel like giving up, if you're tired of fighting and you're dealing with myasthenia gravis or other chronic illnesses or any invisible illnesses or anything like that, and you feel like giving up, I just encourage you not to give up. Rest. Rest. Give yourself time to rest. Take a day. Just don't, stay in bed, rest, watch Netflix, I don't know, but don't give up. Get up the next day and fight, because we have to. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and I don't know, I'd probably be over here somewhere. And then share it if you'd like. If you I'm doing this to spread awareness about chronic illness, and a lot of people don't understand it sometimes, and people will tell me that, oh, you don't look sick, or you look really good, or whatever, you're looking good, and I people have great intentions. I don't, they're being very nice. But I don't think they don't really see the whole story. And so this is my way of spreading awareness. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will catch you the next time.